All right, so fasten your seatbelts. We're going to make this happen really quick. A couple of weeks ago, we all got together, Mary Lynn and Danielle and Karina and Sky, just were kind of just talking about like what we kind of got asked last minute to like do this worship track. So we were thinking like we're gonna do breakouts, we're gonna like go do classroom things where we do visual arts and dance and whatever. So we really just decided to instead talk to the heart of the matter of some of these things that really are, and just be really, really intentional as worshipers. What I'm gonna share is definitely I don't even say most applicable, is applicable for those who are on dance team or on visual arts or on worship team, or you don't serve in a quote-unquote worship ministry at all, or you feel like I can't really sing or paint or dance or whatever, but I love worship and I love Jesus, so I'm here. So really nobody's exempt to what I want to share, and this kind of just is really just where I am and where I have been, and I just want to be honest about what I feel like the Lord wants me to share. You know what, even what Danielle, as she kind of outlines, what it means to be a worshiper, especially as someone in the creative arts, and even Mary Lynn, what she was sharing, when we get to be up here, let's say it is in front of the congregation, and we are doing the dance or the song or the visual or whatever, that's like the easiest of times when it comes to worship. That's like when the table is set and it's all for you. When you're in front of someone and the lights are on and the music's going and the atmosphere is set, even on your worst day, even on the day when I've driven to church fighting, bickering with my wife and gotten in and had to lead worship and even on that day when I was in the worst mood, leading worship here in front of everyone where I'm quote unquote on, is like the 2% of life of worship. It would be like me being judged as a father, or like your perception of me as a father only being on Father's Day, is the best way to say it. When it's like, it's like the best attitude, like the best, and I want to talk to like the 98% of what worship really is. So I'm kind of gonna leave the like gift talk and expression talk, not really, but and like I said, in about 8 minutes I'm going to unpack this. So it would be unrealistic to say that just how you saw me and I felt or I acted on Father's Day would give you a glimpse of who I was as a father. That's not realistic. It's not in any way how life is. And so kind of really what I want to say is, and this is what the Lord was just speaking to me about, and this is where I've been, when it comes to expression and when it comes to being a worshiper, but really just being a son who is captivated by the presence of God and who owes my life to Him, and who everything about me should point back to Him because I have been redeemed because He gave His life for me. And what I want to talk about is that your circumstances and your seasons don't define your worship or your ability to worship. God's worth does. It doesn't matter what you're going through, what you've been through, what you're going to go through next. The barometer of your worship should not be really high when it's really good and really low when it's really bad. His worth is always through the roof, therefore your worship should always be there. So what does that look like? So even Paul said in Philippians 1, as he was writing, he was saying, my life, he's going to be magnified either he's going to be magnified and exalted in my body either in life or in death. And he even was talking about, to live is to Christ, I'll live, and it will be Christ. To die is gain and go and be with Him. But essentially a lot of what he was saying is like, in how I live and in how I die, He's going to be lifted up. And so many times and I was having a conversation with someone this week, and I was just telling them, I've realized how shallow my understanding and my perception of what I thought Christian life was at first. We really sign up thinking, not necessarily it's going to be easy, but we think it's going to be comfortable. We do. We think that I know the King of the universe. I serve him. I'm one of his own. I'm a prince. I'm a princess. I'm a daughter of the king. I'm a son of the king. And we feel unjustly treated when life actually just happens. We do. And then we feel like it's crazy how entitled we get all of a sudden to think like, well, do you know who I am? I am a son of the king. And how quickly that grateful son of the king who was redeemed, was humbled at the cross, was thankful for salvation, turns into resentful and bitter and victimized because you said you were for me and I feel like everything's against me. So what does that look like? I'll tell you about, here's what that looks like for me. At 18, I moved here. I moved away from my family in Louisiana. I've been a singer for many, many years. Didn't play a musical instrument when I moved here. Hurricane Ivan hit. The Lord started to teach me how to play the piano, which dramatically unlocked and quickly unlocked, 5 minutes, my psalm gift. I didn't even know, a psalmist gift, I didn't even know what that was. Like, the church I came from didn't write music, didn't flow in the prophetic. So I was like, in a lot of ways, like pioneering and finding out what that meant. And the Lord allowed me to really be a part of that stream here in psalmistry, and in really seeing that and how that happens in the atmosphere. And 5 years ago, I dove into a pool at a Labor Day party that we were having, a church party, and broke my neck. My hands were paralyzed immediately, and I haven't been able to play since. So if you knew me leading worship before this chair, I would be likely to be behind a keyboard 1 minute and like swinging from that light the next minute. I was all over the place. I really was. And I'll never forget, it was really, really, really a challenge for me when this happened to think like, why would you download this gift in me and just take it away? And then to feel entitled to say like, so what does that mean? I'll never forget, I came back. So I spent 6 months in Atlanta, I came back. And we came in, I came to a couple of services, and within a couple of weeks, I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I may have never seen a worship leader leave from a wheelchair, but just because I'm still in a wheelchair doesn't mean I can't sing that he's not a healer. Doesn't mean I can't sing that he doesn't bring breakthrough and that he's faithful and that he redeems. So I just tell people I'm just worship on wheels, So there's no hall passes and no sabbaticals in worship. This is not just like, oh, well, you're going through a rough time, you can't be on the dance team. Yeah, well, you know what, that's like true. But it always amazes me when people are like, this is my favorite one, and I don't know if it's anybody in this room, but I really feel like the Lord wants to focus on us getting pregnant. So I'm going to really take a step down from the worship team and from dance team so that we can focus on having a baby. I'm literally like, well, we all know what it takes to make a baby. So in your whole week, like, you can't give up that 2-hour service time. Because if it's that often, you're going to break something, is what I'm thinking. People do it. I've heard it on multiple occasions. I'm like, maybe you don't trust Jesus, you're going to get pregnant, and you should probably serve through that. Okay, anyway. But he owns it all. He made it all. He reflects the complete radiance of God's glory. He is the exact representation of God's being. He continues to sustain all things. He paid the price for our sin. He rules it all. And guess what? Circumstances can't change that. We can call it circumstance, we can call it season, we can call it trial, we can call it suffering, we can call it tribulation, we can use all those cool Christian words that we use to talk about it. But really it could be sickness, it could be financial issues, it could be loss, it could be our marriages, it could be jobs, relationship, change, betrayal, backstabbing, offenses, people. I'm going to stop right here, and only because I was up here last night until 1:30 in the morning after that service, having a conversation with some dear friends who just little bitty layers of division had put themselves between us. You would never know on the outside. You never would have realized it. But we sat up here after the presence of God that happened last night and just got honest about some things. And I just want to say this. If part of your circumstance and season is people or offenses, I just want to drop a little scripture, because we don't like to talk about this scripture in Matthew 5:23 when it says, so if you're presenting a sacrifice or an offering or worship at the altar in the temple, and you suddenly remember somebody has something against you, leave your sacrifice at the altar and you go and be reconciled to that person, and then come back and offer your sacrifice to God. Just so you know, that doesn't say, hey, if you remember that something has happened and it's and it's your problem, and you know it's a problem, and it's your fault, you need to go apologize. No. It even says if it's their problem, you know that they've got a problem. Even if their perspective is skewed, but it's hindering their worship and their connection to Him, He doesn't want your gift. You stop and go fix it. And it marries to what Mary Lynn said. Especially you guys who are up here in the front, or you're behind a microphone, or you're in a place of influence. Let me tell you, and we all know it, how many of you ever had a teacher that totally either embarrassed you or wronged you or did whatever, and like for weeks on end in class or a whole school year, you can't receive what they're trying to say to you because it's like, bruh, there's so much junk in between us, don't act like you care about my grade. It's the same thing. But you're talking about somebody's perspective of the King. And I'll be honest, in humble pie, that's what I did last night for 2 hours. I did. And we had to go back to things, y'all, that date back like 7 years ago that were stupid little things. So I'm just going to leave that there. But we want to go about our like big happy worship and turn up the music and make it loud and make it colorful. Listen, this is heart thing. He doesn't care about your stuff if He doesn't have your heart. We can't even get to the gift and the expression of His heart, and that's heart junk. Okay, I'm wrapping up. So here's where I'm at. If your circumstance, this is good. He told me this like this morning. If your circumstance changes your dedication to or your expression of worship, outwardly or inwardly, if you're going to write anything, write this. If your circumstance or your season or your trial or your suffering or whatever that word is, changes your dedication to or your expression of worship, outwardly or inwardly. And I got 2 points. First, you're worshiping that circumstance, not Him. First, you're worshiping that thing, not Him. And that's self-explanatory. But if what you're going through becomes louder, becomes bigger, becomes more of a focal point than who saved you from hell, then you are declaring, this financial issue is magnificent. It is worthy of my affection. It is incredibly, I devote all of my attention to it. I bow down before it. And that sounds crazy, but that is the truth. I am telling you. This very wheelchair I sit in has tried to take the same place. I have tried to make this thing a throne sometimes, and I'm just being honest with you. I really am trying to move quick. I'm so sorry. If nothing else, what we will do is put yours at the beginning of tomorrow before worship. I'm not going to take much longer, but sorry. We can go a little past 11. People have to come in here. It doesn't really start until whatever. So, and here's the truth. Of all the things you've been through in your life, they are going to come to an end. It's going to be okay. It's going to pass. And He's going to be at the beginning of it, and He's going to be at the end of it. But for whatever reason, we are so temporary minded that we think in that moment, this thing is going to take me. I've got to just devote all of my worry. We lose sleep over it. We lose weight over it. We lose relationships over it. We lose faith over it. We waste time on it. It's ridiculous. Okay, so going back to what I said, if your circumstance changes your dedication to or expression of your worship, outwardly or inwardly, first, you're worshiping your circumstance above Him. And second, Here's how that happens. This is kind of a sub. That first thing happens because it's been too long since you've gotten an overwhelming glimpse of just how big he is. That's the truth. How does number one happen? How does it switch that I go from worshiping him to worshiping that thing? Because you've been looking at that thing. That thing got bigger because you lost sight of him and you looked at that thing. And I was asking the Lord, like, how do I kind of give this an explanation, because of like what's a visual? What's a way I can describe this? And this is what he brought to my attention. I went to Australia with Dave the fall before I got hurt in August, September of 2011. And I'll never forget, we left LAX in Los Angeles and we get on a plane, y'all. It's a long plane ride. 7 hours, 8 hours in, you're passing over Hawaii, and that's halfway there. And that entire plane ride is over the Pacific Ocean. And I will never forget looking at the little map you can watch on the plane. They have like a little digital map. You can see where the plane goes. And you literally go through sunrise and sunset nearly like in this whole flight. It's crazy. And I would get up and stretch and go and look out the window, especially when we went over Fiji, because I'm like, oh, that's probably the only time I'm ever going to see you. It's expensive. But I remember thinking, and the Lord was just like, remember how massive that was? Like how overwhelming that water on both sides of a plane from 38,000 feet as far as you can see for 14 hours consecutively. And he said, Trey, this is the difference. I'm like that compared to your little land situation. But people get so disconnected from an experience with me that I end up looking like the Pacific Ocean on a little paper map in a textbook. We can look in our history book and our geography book, and the Pacific Ocean could fit right here on this little page. And this is what the Lord spoke to me. He said, somebody else's picture of him won't be enough to motivate you to commit to a real deal lifestyle of worship. You got to get there and see that thing. You got to get there and get overwhelmed, get overtaken by just how great he is. And even if you can't go back and look at a memory picture of, man, I remember when I saw him like that. No, ma'am, no, sir. You got to get back in that deal. I had some friends that recently went to the Grand Canyon. He's like, I've read about and I've seen and whatever. He said, until you stand there, he said, you expect it to be this massive big hole. He said, I did not understand that when you stand there and look, he said, it's not just like, oh, this big bowl. He said, it's as far as you can see on the horizon. It just goes forever. It's just massive. And so how do you end up worshiping that circumstance above him? You step away from that place. And you don't set up camp to remind yourself and renew your mind and get a glimpse every day that says, I might be in this, but you are this. I can fully express and let out my gifts because I have beheld who you are, and I understand who you are allows me to be confident in who I am and allows me to sell it out and to want to use it to the fullest and to want to make it loud and make it big and make it everything, because this is my duty and my obligation to give some type of real representation that I have seen this thing and he put something in me to help convey to you because I love you, as Mary Lynn says, and because I have a love for his people. I'm going to take what's in me, what little pieces in me that can be totally abandoned and sold out so that you can hopefully not only see the picture of what I've seen of this thing, but you can have a moment where you can stand and you can see this thing, and then that thing in you gets activated and it shows someone. And the Lord questioned, I was like typing this in the back. The Lord said, if your worship were defined by your circumstance, he said, so often you define your worship by your circumstance. What if your salvation was that way? Jesus has to be rude with me because I'm super hard-headed. Seriously. How easy do we I'll just go back to the 2%. How easy do you come in here on a Sunday morning after such a hard week? It's just so hard to lift my hands. It's my song number 3 that I'm really just finding breakthrough. It sounds ridiculous, but not one of us is not guilty. Come on, somebody. Just really need Pastor Lynn to pull me out of this one. So shallow. It's ridiculous. Imagine if you thought, but with God, no. Oh, no, when it comes to salvation, got my heaven ticket. God forbid I doubt salvation the way I offer God my worship. Imagine the songs we sang. What if instead of what if they were about our stories and our abilities and our fickle-minded and our emotion that changes on the turn of a dime? Do you hear how ridiculous that sounds? But how often do we catch ourselves in that place? And I don't mean this to be guilt-ridden and condemning. I meant it to be eye-opening. When you see this magnificent ocean of love, this God who is greater than anything you could ever stand and look at on this earth and be overwhelmed by, and you realize he is for you and he made a way and he sent a son not only to restore relationship, but to bring you in oneness like him, full access to that thing. How can you not worship? Not how can you not turn on your music and dance or paint or sing, but how can you not forsake all? Let it invade you. So how does that look? Okay, Trey, you made it clear. So how does that look? You die and live, and you live and die. In Romans 12:1, and so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he's done for you. Be a holy, a living sacrifice that he'll find acceptable. It's the true way to worship him. I've spoken about this before, and this is not only in our bodies, I believe, in a physical way that we live, but this comes to our attitude, to our mind, to our thoughts. The sacrifice, when they used to bring the sacrifice into the temple. That was a one-way ticket for whatever animal sacrifice that was. You didn't get to come in with the lamb or come in with the ram or come in with whatever it is. It's like walking the Green Mile. You're coming in one way and you're not going back out that way. But so often it's I'm going to come in as a sacrifice to you. Yes, God, I'm going to sacrifice. And the truth is, what we do is bring in our little ketchup and squirt it all over us like we're going to die. And we lay on the altar long enough to clear our conscience, long enough to feel good about our life again and to get built back up. And then we're okay, well, I'm going to head back out. I'll catch you on the flip side. No. That sacrifice came in, and that thing was killed and laid on the altar, and then consumed by fire. There was no remnant. It didn't look the same. It didn't. And how? So my question here is how we worship, and what you're now picking up what I'm putting down is that this isn't just about your visual art. This isn't just about your dance. This isn't just about your song. This is about your being a wife, about your being a mother, about your being a sister, about your being a daughter, about your being a friend, about your being a team member, about your being an employee. And let me talk to some of you young people about you being a student, about you being a friend, about you being a youth group member, about you being whatever those things, every place or label or whatever you could ever hang over your head, every function that you're ever going to have. That is your worship. That is your 98% worship. When you get to come up here and do the fun stuff with the costume on and the microphone and the lights and the paint, yeah, that's great. That's easy. Again, that's the best Father's Day, That's what you look like on the day you get celebrated. That's when the table is set for you. But how does it look when no one's around? Because I can promise you, If your circumstance, what happens outside these doors defines you, guess what? Your impact up here will reflect your impact out there. It will. It will carry you just as far. But if we come in and we are overwhelmed by who he is, and we die and we say, in my life and in my death, you're going to be glorified. Whether it's good, whether it's bad. But I died right here in this moment so that I could worship, so that I could, whatever you see fit, use me however. I don't exist anymore. I'm just this burnt up, used up, wrung out, to the max, nothing held back, no reservation. They don't cut the sheep in half and say, we'll hold the back half as a plan B in case the first half doesn't work out. No. Bring it all up here, put that thing down, sacrifice it, understand that you either have all of me or you have none of me. See, with sacrifice and with worship, it's not like I can give you all the praise in this area but not in this area. No. I heard an old Pentecostal preacher say, if he's not Lord of all, he's not Lord at all. So if he's not worshiped in all of your life, he's not worshiped at all in your life. If he's not worshiped in all of your life, he's not worshiped at all in your life. You're just deceived. You just think that you can sing good. You think he's moved by your lip service. And we've even heard in Scripture what he thinks about that. We have. So you live as you die there. As you die there on the altar, you live there. And you live and you die there. And when you notice that that thing is getting above the thing, you die there again. And let me tell you what, there is security in dying there. There is. Because when that circumstance happened, because let me tell you, it will. Because at 18 years old, when I left my family and everything behind in Louisiana to come here, and when I met my wife and we had our 2 kids, and I loved this house, I love Jesus more than anything else that I've ever seen in this entire world. Anything. I love my wife. She is superwoman. I love my children. I love Jesus so much more than that. I do. And I'm not going to lie. When the whisper of the enemy, when he came and said, so you gave it up all for him? Well, here you are in a wheelchair. How does that make you feel? I'm being honest. It is. And it's so easy made me want to say, so this is what I get for giving it all. I'm being for real with you guys. I wasn't promised comfortable. But it has taken humility for me to learn. And it's almost been sad because the last 5 years in this chair, I have seen the Lord do more through my life in other people sitting in this chair than the 11 years prior in my faith. Do I believe the Lord revels in our inconvenience? I don't. I don't think he lies. It's very clear in his word. He's not some masochistic sadist who just wants to torture you and put you. He doesn't. But if the Son of God came and endured humanity, and endured pain, and endured betrayal, and endured all these things that we could list, and yet he worshiped. His worship was his life poured out. How can I expect to be one with him or walk in his likeness and not do the same? So it's where we have to separate our American individualist culture of I'm entitled to this. What I'm entitled to is sin and death. That's what I'm entitled to. And thankfully, my inheritance is something greater. And last thing, Mary Lynn just said a minute ago, she said, I kind of paraphrase it, but she basically said, people will see our expression and our experience as a way of seeing him, is what she was saying. And so my question is, when people see you in your circumstance, what does your experience and what does your expression say? Because they're watching your worship as a way of seeing him. Your expression and your experience, your expression of the experience you're in will define what you say about him. You think people, you guys who are up here on this dance team or standing at a canvas or at a microphone or at an instrument, Or even you're just up here. Some days you're on the front row, some days you're on the back row. Some days, if you don't think I get to see it all from up there. I see the days I could come and tell you after worship, tap on your shoulder, been like, rough week, huh? I could. I almost need to start a little text, a little accountability text, like, well, you must have fallen off the bandwagon this week. Ain't even seen a finger in the air. My encouragement to you is, you are not that easy of an adversary, okay? The enemy's got you tripped up to think that a circumstance is bigger than the Lord. It's not. It's not. So I say that to encourage you. I mean it. I don't want to just be worshipers who I don't want to just be performers. I don't want to just be people who just make it happen to make it. Because I know that if you're worshiping the 98%, if the way you are at your high school or your college or your job or in your home, in your family, I can promise you it will make my job up here and any other worship team member or dance team member, it is going to make it incredibly, exponentially more effective. Not to mention easier, but more effective, because if your worship outside of this room is really in a place of surrender and constantly in tension, in seeking and in magnifying Him, we will see revival. We will. So don't be swayed by experience. Don't be swayed by circumstance, because He's bigger than that. All right. Sorry.
Wow. I am going to move quickly. I was asked to give my worship testimony. And so it's interesting because everyone's message already really is going to it's going to sound like I just wrote down everything they said, but I swear I didn't. This is something that the Lord specifically gave me last night after 1 o'clock as I was just still up, because I don't know for you guys, but after it's so powerful in here, it's very difficult for me to transition at home and just like go to sleep. I'm like up. And he's talking and I'm listening and I'm talking and he's listening. And anyways, I'm supposed to be quick. So first of all, when I first came into the dance ministry, I was just simply in awe of the dancers. Like Mary Lynn said, it was her, Danielle, Cherish, Anna Pacoda, just these people who I just thought, wow, like they are incredible. And okay, I'm here and I'm glad to be here because God had done so much from the time I walked through those doors to the point that I actually joined the dance ministry. I was just glad to be there. And I thought if they could just tell me what to do, I'll just do that and that will be good. And in the beginning, that's what happened. They'd tell me what to do, I'd do it, it'd be great. I remember they'd be like, dance across the front, I would dance. And then Danielle would be like, did you feel that? Did you feel that shift in the atmosphere? And I'd be like, no, but it was awesome, you know? So it was just, I was just glad to be. And I would dance, and it was awkward because I would dance very close into my body because that was more comfortable for me. And I didn't have mirrors, so I didn't know what I really looked like doing that until Danielle showed me, and then I stopped doing that. But it was just all great to just be here. That was like the beginning, okay? That was the beginning of Ashley in the dance ministry. I remember quickly transitioning through being on the dance ministry, the very first conference night. So the very first night of conference, you know, I feel like it's always a really big night. You want to bring out all the heavy hitters. You want to make sure that you go big, go home. Like you want to start out with a big bang, right? So we get here and none of the leaders are dancing. I was like, what is going on? What do you mean you're not dancing? I'm looking at them because it was them. They set us up. So Danielle's not dancing. Mary Lynn's not dancing. Like none of the people that I depended on were dancing. And so I was freaking out. I mean, like, anyone who knows me knows that if I have to speak or dance or anything like that, I always get really nervous right before, like my stomach hurts. I feel like I gotta go to the bathroom like 5 times. It's just overwhelming. That's how I felt when I realized they weren't gonna dance. And I just thought to myself, there is no way I'm gonna be able to navigate worship the way these women do. There's no way I can do that. I don't have what they have. It is gonna be a disaster, and I don't know why they're gonna let this happen. You're like, why are they not dancing? You see, the thing was, whether you're in the dance ministry, you're on a praise team, you're one of the artists that paint or draw, it's consistent with the fact that those mediums are things that God uses as a vehicle to get you where you're going. There wasn't something so special about them, and not that they're not special because they're dear to my life, and I wouldn't be who I am the day without them and them being shepherds in my life, but it wasn't about them as the person, it was about who God was on the inside of them. Are you guys understanding and tracking and following me so far? Okay, so God took me, a completely broken, hot mess of a person, full of hurt, full of pain, lacking complete identity. And I laugh because Pastor B, for those of you guys who didn't know him as well or didn't get a chance to meet him, he would like tell your testimony like in front of the whole congregation, which he used to always tell Trey's testimony, which used to be really fun for me. So Trey and I will laugh because I am the Trey for Trey. You know, I am the hot mess that Pastor B used to reference Trey being all the whole time. Like he knows, he remembers, like he says he would see everything from up there. I would just cry and be like completely broken and messed up. Could hardly stand upright. But I went and God took me from that person and I did, you know, the grunt work. I learned how to serve. And when I say grunt work, like don't like turn your nose up at that. You need to know how to do the very basic thing in order to lead the multitude. Jesus did that. He washed feet and he served people. When you are at the height of leadership is when you've learned how to serve. That's where the height of leadership comes from. It's from a servanthood. I can attest that being in the level of leadership that I'm at now, I do more serving than I do anything else. I have to be available to people. I have to sacrifice my time for other people. And I don't have a qualm with that. But I'm just wanting you guys to understand perspective. Out there in the world, when you reach heights and bounds and you lead, you don't serve anyone but yourself. Okay? So anyhow, he took this girl. I learned how to serve. I learned the grunt work. I learned how to lead people. I learned how to push them, how to pull them into where God was taking them in the same way that he took me through that process. The fact of the matter is that the woman that I am, and this is the secret, I'm going to let you guys all in on it, okay? The woman that I am, the woman that you are, the man that you are, should not change from this setting to the next. The woman that I am, that is a wife to Dee, a mother to my 5 children, a pastor in 850, a nurse at Sacred Heart, a sister, a niece, a cousin, a friend to different ones. All those places that I am and I am to other people is consistent. If you were to go to my job at any time or run into any of my coworkers and ask them about me, you're not going to hear anything that's going to surprise you. It's going to be the same woman that I am here. So how does this all connect? I know you guys are probably trying to figure that all out, and I'm trying to move quickly. I'll explain to you how it all connects. I had no idea that me being a part of dance ministry was that connection that God was making to me being able to walk out who I am in all those different mediums. It's difficult. It's not as easy for me to be Pastor Ashley at work as it is to be here where it's conditioned. People come to the altar because they want me to pray for them. You know, they call me because they want to hear my advice. They want my counsel. At work, they're not asking for that. It's work. They're not at the altar. So I can't just be like, hey, well, you're here, so you want what I have. They're not asking me for what I have. It's not an understood thing, okay? So I didn't recognize in the beginning when I just came and I was just happy to be here, just dancing across the front, not feeling any of what Danielle was talking about, but just being glad that God was letting me be in his presence and loved me that much. I didn't know that in that time that he was working on me and he was pruning me and he was proving me and he was doing all these things. Worship is the one ministry that you cannot hide. You can't hide. You can't hide your little funky attitude. You can't hide your sin. You can't hide any of those things that keep you from being who God has called you to be. You are completely exposed and raw, whether you want to be or not. You cannot hide. I tried. I would be upset or frustrated. I had like so much stuff going on, and I would walk through these doors and I was just like so frazzled trying to get in here and just and I couldn't shake it, and there would be always this confrontation that I had to bow down and lay those things before God if I was going to be in his presence and lead his people into worship. And on the flip side of that, the reason that God is so intentional to expose you and to let all those things be known is because he is intentional about his bride. He loves his bride, the church, more than anything. He's not going to let anything come in between him and his bride. He has sent his only son so that he could have that connection with his bride. Do you think that he's going to let you and all your mess detour what his plans are for his bride? No, he's not. He's not going to do that. That's why he exposes us, because he wants to deal with that stuff so that when we come out here, we can be a part of his plan and not detour his plan. So what does that mean? That means the music that you're listening to, the shows and the things that you're watching, the conversations that you're having, the way that you're living your life outside of this place affect your worship. So we can put on the costuming, you can get up here and hide behind your instrument, you can have the microphone and your gift be the most amazing voice that I've ever heard, and if you are jacked up, we're all gonna know it. Worship will not go where it's supposed to go. And everyone may not be able to identify that it is you, but the Holy Spirit knows. And he will begin to speak to your leaders, and he'll begin to speak to you, and you will feel this conviction, and you will not be able to continue to carry the weight of disrupting what God is doing in the atmosphere. So in other places, you can wear the right makeup, the right outfit. Like she said, you can be appropriate, right? But in worship, there is no appropriate. There's no appropriate. There's no way to be able to continue to play those types of games with him. So see, the struggle is understanding that there is no separation. No separation in who you are and what you represent. When surrendering your gift during a service, then when you're at work, school, home, or in the marketplace, God expects for you to see that he does in and through you, as you serve through the worship ministry, it's supposed to translate in the other areas of your life. In the same way that what you do and what you partake in translates into your worship. So see, every year, your worship should be growing. The girl that I was that just danced across the stage is not the girl that I am anymore. I know how to navigate worship. I can feel the shifts and the moods and how he will change from this just like this overwhelming love in the atmosphere to all of a sudden we are shifting into warfare, and we're not going to let the enemy take anything from us. I can feel when that shift happens. That thing that she was trying to teach me, oh, I got it now. I got it and I can teach it. There was a process he had me in. And at any point you're stagnated in the process, he's going to expose you. He's going to say, you know what it is? It's that boy right there that you just can't seem to let alone. He's going to say, it's that right there every time you masturbate when you get tired because it's a part of your habit. He's going to expose it. He's going to talk about how disrespectful you are to your parents, but we don't know about it because we don't see how you talk to your parents here at church. He's going to talk about how you're not setting the example at your school because you're more concerned about how they feel and think about you than you are about representing Christ. Oh, he's going to go there. He's going to talk to you about the kind of wife that you are. He talked to me, and he still talks to me all the time about the kind of wife that I am. I'm like, God, I'm a good wife. Gosh, make him a good husband. Shoot, not that my husband's not good, but I'm just saying, like, get on him. No, he deals with me. He deals with me. He deals with me, and he deals with me, and he deals with me. There was a season, I'm still in it, but I remember someone coming. Her name is Kara Fryer, and she prayed over me, and she said, God doesn't let you get away with anything. And I chuckled because I said, he doesn't. I cannot get away with anything, Jesus. Like I couldn't like even think something wrong without him being on me. On me. It was the most frustrating thing and yet the most loving thing I have ever experienced in all my life. To have a father that loved me so much, he won't let me get away with anything because he knows that it would separate me from him. What you guys have got to begin to understand is that everything that has been preached and taught to you today, there is no separation in who you are here and who he's calling you to be out there. I learned how to be bold on the dance ministry. I learned how to preach on the dance ministry. I learned how to press into the different moods of the Holy Spirit on the dance ministry because he's the same. So me being able to recognize his moods when worship isn't going on is the same. At a Freedom Weekend, I can recognize those shifts because I learned it on the dance ministry. Are you guys understanding what I'm saying? Learning how to navigate within my home and knowing that there's something that needs to shift, that we need to press in somewhere, I need to push into that, or I need to back up off of that. I learned that on the dance ministry. There was no separation. If there's anything that I want you guys to get out of my testimony, my worship testimony, which should be a shared testimony, it should be your testimony likewise, is that there is no separation. He uses these mediums, these different, whether you're up here and you're singing or you're an instrument, you play an instrument, or whether you're a dancer or you're an artist who's going to be painting and drawing, he uses all of that to build you into the person that he's called you to be. So you don't let those lessons be just in this box. They translate over, and they have like this rippling effect. I could never do and operate the capacity in which I do if God hadn't planted me on the dance ministry 9-10 years ago. As just a person just glad to be, just hopping around. I mean, I'd just be so excited, and I'd just dance, and I wouldn't even know what the words were saying, and I was offbeat, and it was just glad to be here. To now I lead the dance ministry. Who would have even thunk? Trey, would you have thunk when I walked in these doors I was going to be the leader of the dance ministry? Okay, you ain't got to be dramatic. No one thought that. Not even me. But God saw fit. It was his plan. I never saw myself where I'm at all. I came in those doors and I said, I am glad to have the crumbs on the ground. I don't even need a seat at the table. And God was like, girl, you don't know who you are, else you wouldn't be wanting just the crumbs off the ground. I already got a seat at the table. It has your name on it. I have new clothes for you, a meal that I've prepared for you, and a whole purpose for your life. And he's saying the same thing to each one of you. The same thing to each one of you. It's not just the crumbs. He has prepared a place where he's prepared a meal. He has a different clothes for you, a spot that no one else can sit in because it has your name on it, and a purpose that is all your own. No one else can fulfill it. Can't nobody else be me. Can't nobody else be me. But I love being me. It is by far the most fulfilling thing in my life, is to be exactly who God says that I am. I came into agreement with it. Once I came into agreement with it, everything shifted. So for some of you, it's going to be recognizing that you have to come into agreement with what he says. You can't fight it. The harder you fight, the harder it will be for you. I did that too. I tried to run the opposite direction, and I would run right into that confrontation with him. I think that's why I'm naturally a confrontational person, because God confronts me all the time. So I'm like, this is how this works. You confront. All right, I love you guys, and I believe that the Lord is stirring us all up as worshipers to go to a place in him that we've not been. And you have to know, undoubtedly, you have to know that there is what? No, say it loud. There's no separation. There's no separation. Worship is not just a sometime thing, it's an all the time thing. It's who I am. It's what I do. It's who he says that I am. And it's what he's saying to all of you.
You know, I just want to first say, as we kind of wrap up this session, is we're doing this again tomorrow. Karina Miller has something prepared on the identity of a worshiper, that rather than have her just kind of blow through it in 15 minutes, we're going to put that at the beginning of what we have already planned for tomorrow. So be here on time tomorrow morning, because I know as she's releases that, it's going to just set us up for what we believe God wants to do tomorrow. But we did a lot for some response time. I think that it would be remiss if we did not respond to what God has said, because I mean, even from Danielle laying out foundation of what it means to express and what it means to show, and understanding why the attack on worshipers is so strong is because you took over the enemy's job and he can never get it back. So why an assignment on Ashley Hartwell's life that she could never be that, never have access to that? I just want to eat the leftover crumbs. It's because he took her seat at the table. And I just want us to respond from it doesn't matter at what part the Lord began to is stirring you this morning, or where he's like, that's a, whatever place your toes got stepped on a little bit or your heart got turned up a little bit, I believe the appropriate response always, always, always for worship is surrender, always. Because it's really just raising the white flag and saying, my what ifs, but oh God, but my but and my and my and my reasons why and my excuses, all that fades away, and we say, I'm just going to respond and say, you're bigger. I acknowledge. I'm going to have Craig play this song. And it's a song from Abraham's perspective. And we as worshipers, again, whatever capacity that is for you this morning, if it's an actual worship gift, if it's a dance thing that you're newly exploring, or you're a dance leader, or you're a worship team leader, or you're a vocalist, or you are just a person in worship that you want to see God, just your personal worship go up to the next level. This song talks about, kind of some of the things that I was saying and Ashley was saying as being in the opposite of what the promise is. Being in a circumstance, being in a thing that says you'll never make it to that thing. And so he's going to play this song, and then we're going to have a ministry moment where we can just really just declare that, God, we just surrender to being everything in worship you want us to be. So I want you just to go ahead and begin to lean into this moment. You can stand to your feet if you want. Whatever posture you need to be in to connect.
There is a mountain in between what you have said and what I see. Standing before this offering, my failing heart will fight to believe on this altar, on this road, you have called me from my home. The weight I carry is not my own. Spirit, move this heart of stone. How can I walk in my new name? Father of many, the promise you gave. And on this altar and on this road, I lay down my flesh and bones. And here on this mountain I have climbed, wrestling doubts that flood my mind. When ashes and dust are all that remain, hope for the world still come from my veins. On this altar and on this road, you have called me from my home. The weight I carry is not my own. Spirit, move this heart of stone. And how can I walk in my new name? Father of many, the promise you gave. On this altar and on this road,
like saying, I will be a carrier. I will be a carrier. I will be a carrier. It's like there's a switch. Saying, not only will I give my gift, but I will give it all. And Alex, I just heard the Lord say that just like Ashley was saying that God said, I'm not going to let you get away with anything. I heard him say that to you. The reason that you cannot get away with anything is because of the call on your life. And you will never, ever be satisfied until you give all. But I feel like there's a switch, just like you would switch on a light in this moment for many of you in this room, that you just flip that switch and say, just like Kevin said, I forsake all. Like Trey said, I'm not just going to bring half of the sacrifice. I'm going to bring it all. I can't hold any back for myself. Making the switch to surrender it all, to give it all. So you're not just giving your gift, but that it means something.
I just believe there's something that happens when you just when we make a commitment like this in our hearts. And for worshipers, I don't often think it's about somebody laying hands on you, because it's really not about emotion. I don't want it to be about hype or emotion, because that fades and dies for as long as the lights are on. But you know, even like the song was saying, you know what weight you carry. Maybe it's the weight of being overwhelmed, like, how could I ever have a spot here? Maybe it's the weight of condemnation. Maybe it's the weight of your pedigree of where you come from. Maybe it's the weight of really knowing, I know there's a calling there, but I am terrified of failing. Maybe it's the weight of, how can I bring my skill? I don't want to make it about me. Maybe it's the weight of any of those things. Maybe it's the weight of sin. Maybe it's the weight of just actually forsaking all. Maybe it's the weight of really leaving one identity and finally walking in one. Of laying down multiple identities and actually committing to this one. But I believe there's a response moment, however you need to respond, whatever you need to respond to. I want you to step out of your seat, just come, and we're going to just fill this altar, all as worshipers that are saying, I respond, like she said, like Kevin was saying last night, I forsake all, to respond and say, this is about you. This is about you, Jesus. This is bigger than me. It's bigger than my circumstance. It's even bigger than how you're going to use me. And I'm responding simply and saying, I am again seeing a glimpse of the magnitude of how humongous you are. And I don't want to get in the way of the way you want to use me. That's really what it comes down to. I don't want to get in the way of what you want to do in me, what you want to do through me, what you want to do for me, and so often we do. Just kind of sing that chorus, and I want you to respond. I like to put a demand and say, step out of your seat. Let the rubber meet the road. Let somebody else in this room see you say, no, I'm making that commitment. That way, when they see it slipping, when they see you talking out of a different side of your mouth on the thing, they'll say, hey, I was there in that moment. I saw you say, I'm in this deal, and I'm not going to let you fall through the cracks on this thing. Altar on this road, you have called me from my home. The weight I carry is not my own. Spirit move this heart of stone. How can I walk? How can I walk in my new name? Father of many, promise you on this altar, on this road, I lay down my flesh and bone. Lord, this morning as we lift our hands as a sign of surrender, We acknowledge every area, every time we've exalted something above you. From exalting our gift, from exalting the calling that you even spoke over us, or exalting our disqualifications and our qualifications alike above you. God, from exalting convenience above you, God. From exalting our comfort above you, God. From exalting obligation above you, if we just have to do this week in, week out. Lord God, we pull those things down and we say that there is nothing exalted above you this morning. And that you have made a way for us. You have made a spot for us at the table. On this altar, on this road, you've called me. You have called me from my home. Weight I carry, the weight I carry is not my own, is not my own. Spirit move this heart of stone. How can I walk? And how can I walk in my new name? Father of many, the promise you gave on this altar. On this altar, on this road, I lay down my flesh and bone. I lay down my flesh and bone. Lord, we thank you for a new generation of worshipers who unashamedly acknowledge that without your breath in our lungs, we are nothing. That are not ashamed at brokenness, that don't shy away from reliance of who you are, that don't try to act like something we're not, that are transparent with our worship, that are proud of our stories, that celebrate in the victory that we were once lost and now are found, and that don't hold back from the testimony of our praise and worship, celebrating how magnificent you are. Aren't scared to invest in those skills that will only more magnificently glorify who you are. That we won't just go with leftover worship. We won't just go with convenient worship. We won't just go with what's in stock worship. But we will invest in exclusive, one of a kind, prime time, highest bidder, top of the line, cream of the crop, primo prime time worship. That we will give you the best of the best of the best. You gave your all when we gave you nothing, and we want to give you all because you deserve it all. You are worthy because you are worthy. And we worship because you are worthy. Ourselves to you. All we are, and all we have. Yeah. my heart. I give my heart to worship you. I give my life. I give my life to worship you. The way you made me to. The way you made me. One more time. I give my gift. I give my gift to worship you. Give my heart. I give my heart to worship you. Give my life to worship you. The way you made me do. The way you made me do. Come on, if you're thankful for the presence of the Lord this morning, just put your hands together. Thank you, Jesus. Man, look, I've learned, I've been an incredible, in front of world-renowned people, in front of stadiums. Look, the word doesn't say where 20,000 or more are gathered with somebody really famous, I will be there. It says 2 or more. And some of the most intimate, most life-changing moments in conferences happen when it's just a small group of us. I do want to remind you of a couple things. Ashley's got a handout that's just a takeaway from this morning. We passed out those papers. The purpose of that is tomorrow what you can expect is Karina's going to open us up with what she wants to share. We're going to have a time of worship. And then we're going to do a question and answer where some of us leaders from vocals, from dance, from whatever are going to answer questions. Write down a question. If you have something you want to ask, it can be practical or spiritual about worship or about a specific thing. Write down a question. Get that to Brittany right here in purple. Sometime today before you leave today. Really right now would be best, but if you want to think about it, you can get it to us. We'll do that tomorrow. Thank you guys.